Croeso and welcome to the 2023 BookTrust Cymru Early Years Partner Conference. This year's theme is Supporting Fathers to Share the Benefits of Reading for Pleasure in the Early Years. The conference programme explores how we can support fathers to start and maintain a reading routine with their children by drawing on recent research and sharing examples of best practice. The programme is made up of 2 sessions, a keynote today and a panel discussion tomorrow. Today, we are joined by Jeszemma Howl, our keynote speaker. Jez is Head of Training and National Development at the Fatherhood Institute. She's worked on fatherhood for over 25 years through her direct work with dads in the early years and her role at the Fatherhood Institute, where she translates evidence into practice through training courses and parenting programs, supporting thousands of practitioners. She's always on the lookout for new ways to support the family through father-inclusive family services. In today's session, Jez is going to be sharing some of the findings from the recently released PEACE study exploring the impacts of paternal involvement in early childhood, and she will be talking us through the FRED programme, supporting fathers to read with their children every day. Welcome, Jez.
Thank you so much, Claire. I am absolutely delighted to be joining you all today to talk about fathers reading and how we can best support them. And also what happens when fathers read, what magical thing happens for children. As Claire said, the title is Supporting Fathers to Share the Benefits of Reading for Pleasure. And I've given it a subtitle of It's About Time. It is all about time. It's about fathers' time with children, but it's also about us taking some time to really consider how we can best support them. So it is about time. It's about time we started talking about fathers and reading. If you don't know the Fatherhood Institute, we are a UK-based charity, although we do it globally. And our work focuses on policy, research and practice. So we collate and participate in and publicise research on fathers in families. We also lobby and campaign for legal and policy changes. And my job as head of training is to translate all of the evidence and what works into practice. So we train lots of practitioners across all sectors to really engage well with fathers. Please do go and have a look at the website. It is jam-packed full of research, case studies, blogs, videos. Today, I'll dip our toes into some of that research, but please do go and have a good look and a rummage around in there. So our contribution today, I've loosely sectioned into 4 areas. We will start with the framing of fatherhood, not just in this kind of work, but in UK society and family services, and the impact that can have on our engagement with them. Then we'll move into the research evidence. So what a difference a dad can make to a child. We'll look at FRED, Fathers Reading Every Day, just to see what this might look like in practice. And then, of course, we'll end with some recommendations for practice, what we can learn from the research. So let's start. How is fatherhood framed in UK society and family services, and does it impact on our engagement with them? Well, it can't really help but do that. The work we do or attempt to do to engage with fathers sits within a social context, and the role of the father and what we understand about them sits within complex and often competing frameworks around gender equality, public policy, masculinity, and social and cultural norms. We are all carrying ideas of what fatherhood is, what it looks like, and how much it matters. And these can come from our own experiences, they can our personal experiences and work experiences, but they can also come from the media and policy messaging, for example, It's quite a strong message when fathers just get 2 weeks paternity leave paid at less than the minimum wage. That's a very strong message. But if we think specifically about the messages that fathers get about their role, about their value, about their reading, there is very little out there that says, hey, Dad, you really matter. We are going to attempt to shift this, to reveal and reflect fatherhood in all of its diversity and push back against some of the more negative assumptions made about what fathers are and what they do. I've brought a book for you today because it's the BookTrust. If you know, that's not my tiger, his tail is too fluffy. This is, that's not my husband, he's changing a nappy. That's not my husband, he's doing the laundry. That's not my husband, he's sterilising bottles. Now, while this might feel quite light-hearted when it's shared on social media, actually this kind of stereotype and assumption about what fathers do or don't do is really strong out there in the ethers, in the cultural noise about fathers. But fathers are more involved with their children than ever before, and are often integral to the health and well-being of mothers and children. Most research, however, continues to focus exclusively on maternal and child health, and that presents an incomplete picture of family. This study offers 2 possible explanations for this. The first is the concept of a primary carer, and that refers to the relative quantity of time that mothers and fathers spend caring for children. And if one parent is considered the primary carer, then it makes sense that the other one would be the secondary. And if the father is not living with the mother, very often in research and in practice, he can be considered absent, even if he's not. And a parent who is secondary or absent can be quite easy to overlook. The primary caregiver idea, of course, is linked to ideas around attachment. And in that perspective, the mother-child bond is paramount and above all other attachments. And it's a short step from there to see any other parents as secondary or helpers. The second idea that pushes the influence of fathers to the edge of consideration is rigid ideas that they provide rather than care. This leads to the conclusion that they don't spend enough time with the child to really influence their child's development. And of course, that is no longer true for a great many families. What all of this is marginalisation of fathers, and it can present 3 really sticky problems. I say sticky because they hang around. It can suggest that fathers are optional in children's lives and that they don't contribute to the child's well-being. It's detrimental to mothers because it gives us sole rather than shared responsibility. And it perpetuates low take-up in services. So fathers get less information, less advice, less support, and they grow to accept this diminished role in the life of their families. But within the family, it doesn't look like this. A quick overview of the research. Evidence around the impacts of father involvement is less clear than that about mothers, mainly because it has been less researched, although there is now a very strong evidence base. Father involvement may well have different impacts than mothers. Children with 2 involved parents just generally receive a greater variety of stimuli, and that fosters better cognitive outcomes because of the exposure to different values, behaviours, vocabulary and parenting styles. And of course, parents can do things differently. Children can cope with that. What they can't cope with is conflict around those differences. So mothers and fathers may well read the same book so differently, and children will gain a lot from that. Some research suggests that fathers and mothers talk differently to their children and have different conversation topics. And research also suggests that fathers are more likely to enable risk-taking in children and produce more positive attitudes towards school, which can result in the attainment of better grades. The myth of widespread absenteeism remains powerful, and it's important not to mistake their invisibility with absence, especially when we look at these figures. 95% of expectant mothers are either married to or living with their child's father, or romantically involved, or are friends and co-parenting. Fewer than 2% of women have a new male partner at the time of birth. And 95% of parents jointly register their baby's birth, which of course means 95% of fathers have parental responsibility. But we should be working with all fathers and father figures, regardless of parental responsibility. 67% of 12-year-olds live with both birth parents, and 92% of adolescents are in contact with their birth father. So they are there. And fathers now are doing more than ever before. In 1975, I was one, and my father would have spent, on an average working day, around 15 minutes with me. Direct engagement, so not just being in the house, but being with me and playing and talking and caring. By 1997, that had rose to 2 hours, so a rise of 800%. It had doubled again in 2015, so up to 4 hours. It kind of plateaued before the lockdown at 4.5 hours a day. So fathers had taken it as far as possible without real fundamental shifts in flexible working or working from home arrangements. Of course, during lockdown, it went up to 8 hours, and we predicted it wouldn't slip back to pre-pandemic levels because of the gains that fathers and children made in their relationships. So fathers now are more likely to request flexible working or working from home. But we know that fathers are just much less likely to receive targeted support or be actively recruited or addressed by family-focused support and interventions. And crucially, fathers have less time with their children. So if they are around in the early years, is it that they are just less visible? The latest ONS data about fathers and mothers' involvement in paid work would suggest that that is the case. So if we look at the numbers of men employed full-time at 85%, compared with economically inactive and looking after the family home, less than 2%. So it's a lot more obvious when we look at this that it might not be that they're absent or avoiding anyone, it's probably that they are at work. So what does all this evidence tell us? Well, it tells us we might not be seeing them in great numbers, but they are there. And they are in relationships and they are parenting far more than ever before, probably more than we were. But we know that the barriers to inclusive practice are real and they're numerous, and they include personal, organisational, strategic and societal factors. So even when we see them, we may not be fully seeing them, fully revealing and reflecting their lives. It's our hope that this short session today can help to overcome some of these barriers, help to reveal and reflect fathers, and support services to support the whole family. So let's have a look at fathers in the research and what a difference a dad makes. It is really important as a starting point to acknowledge this, that almost all fathers of young children are already doing something. They're already involved in their child's literacy and other development at home. So it's really important that any interventions acknowledge this and build on his existing knowledge, skills, culture and participation, rather than approaching fathers as if they aren't involved at home and aren't interested. The deficit perspective of fathers is quite a strong cultural noise that we need to work with fathers because they're not doing things. Ultimately, we need to know what it is they're doing because they're already doing quite a lot. So a lot of this work is around building on what they're already doing. Major studies across the world which follow families over time have found that father involvement with their children is linked with higher educational achievement and higher mobility relative to their parents. When fathers of 1- and 2-year-olds read lots of books to them, their children tend to be more interested in books later on. Preschoolers whose dads read and talk to them a lot behave and concentrate better at nursery and do better in maths as well. At 5, their children know and use more words, they can pick out letters more accurately and are better at problem solving. And father involvement with their 7- and 11-year-old children is linked with their better exam performance at 16 and attainment at age 20. And a key predictor of father involvement continuing is having been involved in their care very early on. So the sooner the better. The sooner we start relationships with fathers and support them, the better. That will be picked up in the later research. So many reviews over many decades have found that children with highly involved fathers tend to have higher educational achievement, increased emotional security, greater capacity for empathy, non-traditional attitudes to earning and childcare, greater social mobility, more satisfying adult partnerships for women, higher self-esteem and life satisfaction, and lower adolescent risk behaviour and criminality and substance abuse. I love this quote. Some people say like father, like son, but I think they're wrong. Like father, like daughter. I'm exactly like my dad, not in looks, in personality. We both like fishing and picnics. So this child is saying, I am like him. I am like him. And that sounds okay. So there's something around a sense of identity there. I am very much like him, and that's good. That's a good thing. Parents' vocabulary use is far more powerfully affected by their education level than their sex. But some studies suggest that fathers' verbal interactions with their children may well differ from mothers, and that will be to the child's advantage. So fathers have been found to use different and longer words with their children and use more abstract words. And topics may vary by gender, with mothers referring more frequently to emotions, and that can predict children's emotional understanding. And fathers often using more causal explanatory language, which predicts their children's theory of mind. When mothers and fathers share care of children more equally, we see less of a difference in vocabulary use. So we will see mothers using longer and more abstract words. We will see fathers referring more frequently to emotions. And a study of families with disabled children found the children were more likely to display interest in literacy materials if their fathers were involved in childcare and household routines as well as play. So it's not just the activity of the reading or the play, it's all the other things around it, the childcare and the household routines. And that is fascinating. Father's affection and support and warm but firm parenting style and sensitivity are linked with their child's better educational outcomes, including IQ and school readiness. But if his parenting style is rigid and bossy, that's been linked to poorer vocabulary and other skills in children. And it carries the weight of influence over mother's parenting for facilitating both academic skills and social behaviours. And the Read On Get On report found that 7-year-olds whose dads never read to them are more than a year behind those where dads read daily when they reach 11 years in language development. The sooner we can get in and develop good reading habits, make it fun, make it magical, make it a beautiful thing, the more likely it is to continue. 2 weeks ago, we launched a new paper called Paternal Involvement and its Effects on Children's Education. It was led by Dr. Helen Norman in the University of Leeds, and we were co-investigators on this. So I'm going to pull out some of the newest research from this, but please do go to that website and download it and absorb it. It's absolutely fascinating. The PEACE study wanted to explore whether fathers' involvement in child engagement activities such as reading, playing, arts and crafts affects their child's cognitive development and educational attainment through primary school. And understanding what underlies variations in primary school attainment is important. Evidence shows that parental engagement within the home learning environment is critical for a child's education and development. But that conclusion is based on research conducted with mothers or with parents whose gender has not really been considered in the analysis. So we knew less about whether and how fathers affected their children's education. And that was the kind of big question for this body of work. So what did the PEACE study find out? The analysis shows that fathers' childcare involvement has a unique and important effect on the educational outcomes of children that is over and above the effect of the mother's involvement. Specifically, it found that greater father involvement in structured activities like reading and playing provides an educational advantage to children in their first year of primary school. And father involvement operates differently from mother's involvement because it was helping to increase their educational attainment, whereas mother's involvement enhanced children's cognitive behaviour. So mother's involvement helps to reduce hyperactivity in children and enhance their peer socialisation skills, as well as emotional conduct and pro-social behaviour. So what does this mean? Well, fathers impact how children get on at the desk at school, how well they do at the desk. Mothers were impacting on all the things that can scaffold that. So all the things that help better friendships, getting on well with your teacher, having good behaviour, and all of those things become this magical pot where children do well. For many years, we've been looking to see if fathers have a unique influence, and the PEACE study is part of that bank of evidence. But why? Why would a dad make a difference? The study explored two possible reasons why fathers may have this important impact. The first is 2 heads are better than 1. Having 2 involved parents rather than 1 exposes a child to more varied stimuli. And fathers may bring something different. Fathers' input to their child's learning and development may bring particular benefits, as highlighted by the previous research that shows fathers tend to engage with their children in different ways to mothers. Fascinating. Let's just break some of these down a bit. So fathers' preschool involvement helps to increase the child's educational attainment in the first year of primary school. If fathers are involved when their child is age 3, in their child's development, so play, reading, all of that, they're more likely to remain involved in doing those things at age 5. And if they're doing that at 5, they're more likely to be doing it at 7. And this effect seems to grow. So this would suggest that early paternal involvement sets up a pattern of involved caregiving that is likely to continue as the child gets older. All of this has benefits for child's educational progression. And father involvement during the first year of primary school helps to increase their child's educational attainment at that time. So when the child is age 5, father's childcare involvement has a small but positive effect on the child's educational attainment, which is over and above the effect from the mother's childcare engagement. And that's the case even when we account for variables such as gender, ethnicity, age in the school year, and household income. And this underlines the importance of supporting fathers to be involved in the first year of school, because this enhances the child's educational outcomes. However, given the effect from fathers' preschool involvement is larger, it's important that fathers are involved from early preschool age. Again, it is about time. So, mother's involvement affects the child in different ways. So it helps to reduce problems with friends, as well as this emotional conduct and hyperactive behaviour. It also helps to enhance pro-social behaviour at age 5. All these behavioural traits have a positive relationship with educational attainment at school. It has a particular strong association with reduced conduct problems in children, as well as better pro-social behaviour. And it is all of these things together. It is this kind of scaffolding, social scaffolding, that supports the child to do well at the desk. The PEACE study pulled reading apart as one separate subject, and reading with children is one activity that appears to have an important positive effect on the child's educational attainment at school. So children were more likely to have a good level of attainment at age 5 if either parent reads to their children regularly, although the effect appears to be slightly stronger for fathers. 3/5 of children whose dads read to them regularly reached a good level of overall achievement, compared with just 2/5 of children whose dads rarely ever did this. And it's not just reading. Although parental involvement in structured childcare in and around the home has the most important impact on a child's educational attainment, it is also his participation at the child's school or early years setting, such as helping out in the classroom or fundraising or being a school governor, for example, can have some benefits because that demonstrates the value and importance of education to the child, which can have a positive influence on learning, behaviour and attendance. So the message for services here is it's not just about supporting dads to read, it's about really being very open to engaging with them in a wide range of activities, including as a resource for our service, for our setting. Pull them in, get them on the governors, get them on forums, pull them in for family fun days, get them volunteering, make them part of this kind of scaffolding for children. If this has piqued your interest, please do go on the Fatherhood Institute website for more research, or you can also go to peacestudy.org where you can download the whole study and absorb it and really pull apart what this means for practice. But all of this together shows something that, had we asked children, we would already know. What fathers do or don't do really matters to children. What this evidence gives us is lots of things to put in our bag. A justification for going further with this work, for saying to dads, you know what, dads, you really do matter because here's the evidence. They won't know it. No one ever tells them. It's not out there in the big messages. It's never on the back of a bus. Let's be the ones that say, you know what, Dad, let me tell you a few things. If you did this now, this will happen later. We will be moving on to a practice example around fathers reading every day that pulls on some of this evidence base and will give you some ideas on how to do this in services, not just in Fred, but across the board. So Fred is a wonderful reading programme we brought over from the States about, nearly 20 years ago. And we brought it over because of all the evidence that we've just gone through. We knew that fathers reading with children was an important issue. We knew that services would like a programme to help them do this. So this is what it looks like. It is a 4-week home-based reading programme. It's for any father and father figure, anyone the child would say is like a father to me. It works with any age child from birth. We've even seen it work with university age children. And it can be delivered across a wide range of sectors, including early years, nurseries, schools, libraries, family support, health visiting, prisons, the big lottery sites, family hubs. There's some wonderful Fred programmes being run in Wales at the moment. So literally any father or father figure can do it, any child can do it, and pretty much anyone who works with families can deliver this. So this is how it works. Fathers are given a reading diary and ideas and tips and activities, and crucially, information why this is important. As I said a second ago, hardly anyone is telling them anything about that. So just letting them know that what they do is really important. We give them ideas and tips and activities, again, because they rarely get that. But also, we don't want people to think this is about learning to read. It isn't. It is about learning to love reading. It is really light touch and positive and encouraging and celebratory. So every single minute they read with their children is celebrated. So although we give them a bit of a target, and it's a very loose target, of maybe even 10 minutes a day, if they manage 8, fabulous, wonderful. Couple of quotes, I love these. I loved spending time with Daddy. So again, that comes down to time. This one really gets me though. I wouldn't get the opportunity to be read to, and Daddy enjoys me listening to him while he reads fantastic books. This child is saying, my dad enjoys me listening to him. What a gift. I love this photo. This is my youngest child, who was maybe 3 weeks old at this point, with her dad lying on the floor, looking at owl babies. If you know the book Owl Babies, it's basically about a single mother who goes off and leaves 3 children at home on the nest. But it was the baby's favourite book. We went through it and through it and through it. And we actually got that from the BookTrust. So thank you, BookTrust. So how does it work? They read at home with their child for set times per day. So on average, it can be 10 minutes a day and then rising to 20 minutes. And they can break that down. We know fathers are time poor. So they could do 5 minutes over breakfast and 5 minutes at bedtime. They could do a whole 10 minutes during bath time. They could do 2 minutes on FaceTime at lunch, and then do the rest when they get home. They can break it down. We make it achievable for fathers who are working long hours or shifts. And they can read anything and anywhere. So they don't have to read books. They can read magazines. They can read IKEA instructions, bus timetables, anything at all. We had one dad read with his newborn the whole of Land Rover monthly. They can read in any language. All of it is really helpful. One really touching encounter I had at a Fred launch was with a Kurdish dad, who said, when I came to this country, I brought my favourite childhood book with me. I didn't have any children, but I knew one day I was going to be someone's dad and I wanted to read this with them. And that's what he picked up during Fred. So they do this, they grab their reading diaries and they write down what they've read and for how long. Of course, all achievements are celebrated. And the service delivering this makes contact with the fathers during the 4 weeks to see how they're doing. So sometimes that might be saying, come on in, we're going to do this, I don't know, storytelling workshop, or we've got a drum circle going on, or there's a book swap, or we're going to have a book club. Come and talk to us about your favourite books. This quote is from a lovely dad. Fathers reading every day, enjoy it, do it. She asked me a lot about the stories I read. Laughing, and also good for the fathers, gives you confidence to play a role character of the story with the child. I try and read every day since Fred. So when we brought Fred over, we went through a DFE pilot evaluation, and we found that fathers spent 70% more time reading to their children during Fred. And Fred children were 4 times more likely than their peers to make greater than expected progress in reading and numeracy and writing. Children entitled to free school meals made the greatest progress. High numbers of boys took part, more of that in a second. And we get a really high retention rate, 86% of dads who start, finish. And that's really high for any parenting programme. But when we think about the assumptions about, dads are inaccessible, they're always at work, or we can't get them in, or, all the things I hear from the workforce, This is amazing. 86% of dads finished Fred. And a third of Fred dads said they now spend more and better quality time with those children. I'm going to go through some of these quotes. They are quite telling, I think. There are words that are repeated here. I feel more confident, and Fred has encouraged me to read with the child. It's helped me and awoken me to do so, which is very good. Awoken. I would definitely encourage more fathers to take part. I can't read very well, and I don't normally look at books, but looking at the books with my children has definitely helped me, and I feel more confident to pick a book up with them now. The Fred reading gave me confidence. The information I was given regarding reading to my children and how important it is has given me courage and a closer bond. Courage. And as a family, we have a better going to bedtime routine. Hooray. We will be joining the library. I didn't have much of a bond with my youngest two, as they was all mum. Now I look forward to story time and that 2 hours daddy time just to relax with them. Love that I had something to show at the end, and my child now comes to me with a book at 11 a.m. and 6 p.m. So there is there's some commonalities here. Awoken, courage, confidence, bonding. All of these words just fill me up. This is magical stuff. I'm just going to look at one setting. So this was a school with an early years setting attached. And they got 180 children through one round of Fred, and the children were aged 3 to 6 years. 86% of these children had English as an additional language. 97% of dads said taking part in Fred has helped them read to their child every day. A similar number say their child is choosing a book or something to look at or read more often. They're having longer conversations and using new words and phrases. And 91% say they now feel more connected with their child. So they know when they need quiet time, a cuddle, eye contact, understanding their mood with their child. And 87% say they speak to or sing or laugh more with their child and feel more confident in reading books or telling stories. And although fathers can read anything at all with their children, anything at all, they are still reaching to the bookshelf with books being read 2,486 times throughout just one round of Fred. Some app use was used, but not very often. Some fathers were using WhatsApp and Teams to call in and read a bedtime story. All of this really matters. And what I get from this evaluation is a shift in confidence, a shift in understanding, and an awareness of why this really matters, and a shift in relationships. So feeling more connected and having more fun. 87% are laughing more with their child. All of this is beautiful. So just pulling apart some of the outcomes from Fred. I'm sure you've all heard of the reading gap between boys and girls, and we really wanted to know if Fred did anything there at all. So we were looking first off at reading and literacy and the numbers of children achieving or exceeding expected progress there. If we look to the right, the national average, there was a gap between boys' achievements and girls. So boys were at 65% of boys were achieving or exceeding expected progress. For girls, it's 73%. In this local authority, there was a bigger gap. So just 59.5% of boys were achieving or exceeding expected progress. In the Fred cohort, look at that, it's pretty like bang on. In fact, boys are there's a higher percentage of boys, 91.67, so it's ever so slight. So this is like crucial when we think about the reading gap. Listening and attention. Again, to the right, there's a national average gap. There was a gap in the local authority, and Fred very nearly closed that gap. But of course, girls did really well there too. Managing feelings and behaviour. Nationally, there's quite a large gap there. In this local authority, it was very similar to the national average. And Fred, again, has nearly closed that. So very similar numbers of boys and girls achieving or exceeding expecting progress. And making relationships, so achieving or exceeding expected progress here. A 10% gap nationally, 10% gap in this local authority. And look what happened to boys here. A higher number of boys than girls achieve this, 94%. So we didn't just close the gap, we really shifted things with Fred. There are many reasons why I love talking about Fred. I have seen it in action. I'm lucky enough to do that. I've also seen the difference it makes to a service when we are able to deliver something to fathers that resonates with them, that builds on what they're already doing. So Fred doesn't tell fathers to do something because they're not doing it. What we're doing is saying, here's a format, here's a challenge, do what you're doing, but log it. You know, here's some other ideas, let's extend it, let's extend the activity, here's other things you can do, let's all go to the library, let's swap some books, let's change things. And I have really seen the difference in services who deliver Fred, that it extends their engagement with fathers in other ways. So they might see more fathers on home visits, for example. They might see more fathers in other groups. They might see more fathers coming to clinics. It really can shift a relationship with fathers. I love it because I can see the outcomes for Fred children, and the real shift is this father-child relationship. When fathers are time poor, when they think, oh, I haven't got the time, and you say 10 minutes matters, and do it here and do a bit here, and then they can see the shift in relationships. That percentage of feeling closer to their children is amazing. And we can kickstart that early involvement that pays dividends later on, as that peace study found out. So we, as soon as we can get in there, we can get dads in this kind of everyday matters, 10 minutes matters. You can change the world in 10 minutes. It is about time. So those are some of the really strong messages we want to get out there. If you would like to know more information about Fred, please do go on the Institute website, or you can email me for more information. There's some videos. If you go on YouTube and look up Fathers Reading Every Day, of dads talking about the difference it made. And there is also Father's Story Week, which we ran for many, many years. And there are videos of authors reading their stories on our YouTube channel. So please do go and have a good look. What all of this tells me is when we engage fathers with something that resonates with them, magical things can happen, and it's well worth doing. With that in mind, I'm going to draw us to some conclusions and recommendations for the final part of my session. The really big conclusion is fathers are there and they are parenting. And what they do with their child may well have independent impacts on that child's attainment. And programmes that specifically target fathers see impacts on child's attainment, parent-child relationships, and it kickstarts a relationship with providers. And fathers are often called hard to reach, seldom seen, seldom heard. So we do need specific efforts to engage with them. We can't just open our doors and say, you know, come on, Dad's walking. When all of that framing that we did early on in this session still exists. So sometimes we have to go further and send blatant messages that say, our service is for you. It's for mothers, it's for fathers, anyone around the child, we will work with you. And we understand that maybe we haven't got that right all the time, and we're going to go further. We need specific efforts to engage, to retain fathers in this. There are some recommendations from the Peace study that supporting fathers and mothers to be involved in their children's education and learning is important because of the complementary benefits each parent can bring to the child's cognitive and educational development. And that father involvement, in addition to mother involvement, is critical, and support from early years settings and schools, employers and the government can help to enable this. There are some recommendations for fathers. Maybe you could share some of these. That carve out time to spend on regular engagement activities. That again, it is about time. Just 10 minutes a day can have beneficial impacts. Collaborate with the child's other parent as a learning supporter. And that includes sharing routine care as equally as possible so that all parents have time to spend on the more fun childcare engagement activities that are shown to be important for the child's development. And build a relationship with your child's school or early years setting. Start by ensuring the setting has your contact details on file and that you are included in all communications. And that brings me to recommendations for early years childcare providers and schools, but I think for everybody actually, that we need to collect and use fathers' contact details. I lose count of the number of early years and education providers who tell me that they actually do have dad's details, but they can only send out one message. Just send out two, it's that easy. Develop and implement a strategy for parent-focused comms by allowing comms to be sent to more than one parent. Refer explicitly to fathers in communication as opposed to parents. The word parents really means mothers. It does in the research and very often it does in practice. If you want fathers to attend, we have to be blatant. Say the F word, say fathers. Provide resources and activities that are specific to fathers that encourage their engagement. and recognise that fathers' work-life challenges, which prevent some parents from engaging in school-based activities. So if you wanted dads to come along at 1 o'clock on a Tuesday, you haven't got much of a chance. But knowing your local fathers, knowing that, you know, where they work, what their time is like, or offering a hybrid of things. So some things online, some things recorded, some things face-to-face. And ensure support is given to a diverse group of fathers, so from different cultural backgrounds or religious backgrounds, who may face barriers to their involvement in home learning or school-based activities. So I guess that's about knowing them. There are lots of top tips to engage well with fathers on our website. Certainly do go and have a root around. My biggest top tip is to be open to this. Start with recognising where you're doing well and where there are gaps to engaging with fathers. Put some dad shoes on. What might it be like to walk through your service as a dad? Is it nice and smooth? You know, do you get lots of advice and information? Are you seen? Are you respected? Is the offer resonating with you? Where are the gaps? That's the key thing. So although we're doing this to support fathers in what they're doing, really, a lot of this work can be transformational for services, because it can highlight where we need to do well. I've come to the end of my presentation. I look forward to seeing you at the panel, but please do keep in touch. You can, as I said, go and have a good route around at the website fatherhoodinstitute.org. You can find us on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, although only one of us knows how to use that one. Do go and have a look at the piece study. It is brand new and it is mind-blowing. So please do get that one downloaded and share with people who've not been able to attend today. There are resources, downloadable resources on there. So top tips for services, top tips for dads. So please do use that. For now, thank you so much for listening. I've really enjoyed talking about this. It's one of my favourite things to talk about as someone who comes from an early years background and working on this agenda for over 20 years. I know things have moved on. I know there is more understanding. I know there is more awareness, and I certainly know there's more commitment. And supporting fathers in this way can be magical. It is a huge honour to work with families, and this would be a fabulous way of doing it. It is a gift that will last children a lifetime. Thank you.
Thank you, Jez, for a really interesting and inspiring session. Lots for our partners to take away and reflect on, and please do share with colleagues and families. You can follow Jez, as she said, and the work of the Fatherhood Institute on their website and socials, and we'll pop those into the chat. That is all from us today. Please join us tomorrow for our panel and information sharing session with insights from Jez, who will be joining us again, Craig Jacob from Cardiff Libraries, Deb Thomas from Homestart Cymru, Alex Wharton, the Children's Laureate Wales, Kizzy Roth from Storybooks Dads, and Kelly Maguire and Kate Bauer from our Research and Impact and Design and Innovation teams at BookTrust. We hope to see you then. Thank you.